You know, there's this strange thing that happens when you begin to wake up in the Western world. You start to feel more yourself than ever, and yet more alone than you've ever admitted. But I don't mean the typical loneliness people talk about, the kind cured by company or noise or another distraction. I mean when you really begin to see the mechanics behind society, the performance of identity, the quiet assumptions everyone seems to be following without question. And here's what nobody tells you. The more awake you become, the more you'll feel like you're stepping out of a room everyone else is still asleep in. Have you ever wondered why clarity comes with such a cost? Nobody tells you this, but the moment you begin to see the world as it is, not as it is advertised, you start to realize you're not here to fit into what everyone else calls normal. You're here to notice, to question, to feel the things others rush past, to sense the tension beneath the conversations, the unsaid truths behind the smiles, the weariness people carry but refuse to name. And yet, that awareness places you slightly outside the circle. You're in the room, but not of it. You're among people, yet privately watching how the whole dance works. And if you've ever felt that quiet distance, you're not alone, even though it feels like you are. Do you ever feel like you see patterns other people brush off? Do you ever walk into a room and immediately pick up the emotional temperature? Do you ever sense the exhaustion of pretending, even before you speak a word? What if everything we've been taught is backwards? What if the problem isn't that you don't fit, but that you've begun to grow beyond the frame everyone else is still living inside? Here's where it gets interesting. That uncomfortable gap between you and the world isn't a malfunction. It's the sign of awakening Plato spoke about when he described the moment a person steps out of the shadows and turns toward the light. But he never said it would feel warm at first. He said it would burn your eyes. He said it would be disorienting. He said the others might not understand you. So let me share something with you, something rarely discussed openly but deeply felt by anyone who's begun this path. The first thing you must understand is this. Awakening separates you from the world, not because you're superior, but because your perception has changed faster than your environment. It's like stepping backstage during a theater performance. Everyone else is still sitting in the audience, absorbed in the story, but you've seen the ropes and pulleys and the nervous actors waiting for their cue. And once you've seen that, you can't unsee it. You can't pretend the illusion is the whole truth anymore. Think of it like trying to pour the ocean into a teacup. Your inner expansion, the insights, the intuitions, the clarity, no longer fit into the tiny social expectations you were once told to obey. And so you start to overflow, quietly, invisibly, but unmistakably. I once knew someone who said, "Every time I tell the truth about how I see things, people look at me like I'm speaking another language." You might know that feeling. You observe the same events as others, but you perceive them differently. You read between the lines. You absorb tone, not just words. You sense the story behind the story. Think about it this way. Waking up is less like gaining knowledge and more like gaining eyesight. You suddenly see what shaped you, what conditioned you, what limited you. And once you see it, the world becomes larger, but your old social circle becomes smaller. This is why you feel alone. Not because nobody relates to you, but because you've become too honest to tolerate the illusions that once connected you. Now, the second thing, and this one is even more important, is that Western culture trains people to fear depth. You weren't raised in a world that teaches presence. You were raised in a world that teaches performance, smiling on command, responding automatically, moving faster than your spirit wants to move, thinking more than you feel, doing more than you are. So when you begin to slow down, when your perception grows more spacious, when you start hearing the inner voice beneath all the noise, you naturally fall out of sync with the rhythm of everyone around you. It's like muddy water settling. While the world continues shaking the glass, you're allowing everything to become clear, still, quiet, honest. And the truth is, most people don't know what to do with someone who isn't rushing, someone who isn't distracted, someone who actually listens, someone who sees them without them having to perform. Consider this situation. You're at a gathering, and someone asks how you've been, not because they genuinely want to know, but because it's part of the script. But you pause, you reflect, you answer sincerely, not dramatically, just truthfully. Watch what happens. People shift, they fidget, they look away, they laugh nervously, because sincerity exposes how artificial most interactions have become. Here's the profound part. Your awakening highlights the sleep of others. And people rarely thank the one who turns on the light while they're still sleeping. This is why your honesty creates distance. This is why your sensitivity is misunderstood. This is why depth makes you feel like an outsider. But remember this, your depth isn't a flaw. It's just not the cultural currency of the West. Not yet. And that's the secret nobody mentions out loud. The third thing, and perhaps the most insidious, is that awakening dismantles your old identity. You know that persona you used to wear? The one shaped by expectation, approval, childhood conditioning, and social pressure. That persona begins to crack, gently, quietly, but persistently. It's like watching a costume fall off your shoulders. You're not losing yourself, you're losing who you were never meant to be. Think of it as a garden requiring weeding. For years, you thought the weeds were part of the garden. You tended to them, fed them, identified with them. But now, with new eyes, you see they were choking the flowers you were meant to grow. I once worked with someone who said, "It feels like everything I used to rely on is dissolving." Yes, that's exactly what happens. Your habits change, your boundaries shift, your tolerance for nonsense evaporates. Your sense of self evolves faster than your external world can adapt. Here's the profound part. Losing the false self feels like losing everything until you realize it was never really you. It was just a survival strategy, and this is where it gets dangerous. Because when the false self dissolves, your relationships change. Some fall away, some resist your evolution, some tighten their grip because they no longer recognize the version of you they were benefiting from. This is why awakening feels lonely at first, not because you're disappearing, but because you're finally appearing. And the fourth thing, the most critical of all, is that awakening grants you freedom far sooner than it grants you companionship. The freedom comes early. The community comes later. Plato warned about this. He said when someone escapes the cave, they must first adjust to the light alone. Only then can they return and speak to others who are still inside, if those others wish to listen. Your awakening gives you freedom from illusion, freedom from unhealthy attachments, freedom from performing, freedom from people who drain you, freedom from chasing validation, freedom from meaningless noise, freedom from everything that once held you emotionally hostage. But that freedom comes with a quiet tax. The temporary thinning of your social world. It's like climbing a mountain. The higher you go, the fewer people there are around you, not because they're less worthy, but because they're not climbing the same path. Consider what happens in nature. Birds migrate by altitude. Not every bird flies at the same height. Not every species is designed for the same atmosphere. Some go beyond the clouds, others stay close to the trees. Awakening places you at a different altitude. And while the air is clearer, the company becomes rarer. Think about it this way. You're not alone because you have no people. You're alone because you're between worlds. You've left the one you outgrew, and you haven't yet arrived at the one that matches who you're becoming. This is why awakening feels lonely but free, because you're in the corridor between identities, between circles, between versions of yourself. And that corridor is necessary. Pause, music soften. So here we are, back to where we started. That peculiar tension between loneliness and freedom. That strange sensation of being both inside the world and slightly outside of it. That quiet knowing that you're seeing something others haven't yet looked at. All of this connects because your awakening is untangling you from the unconscious agreements you didn't realize you made. The agreements to stay small, agreeable, quiet, pleasing, unquestioning, efficient, predictable. The beautiful secret is this: you're not becoming less connected. You're becoming more selective, more discerning. more aligned with truth rather than approval. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are simply outgrowing the world that taught you to betray yourself. And here's the paradox. The more you let go, the more you receive. The more honest you become, the more authentic people you attract. The more boundaries you set, the more space you create for real connection. The more still you remain, the more clearly life reveals itself. Nothing is wrong with you. You're just becoming someone your old life wasn't designed to support. So the next time you find yourself wondering why you feel alone in a crowded place, remember what we've explored today. Remember that solitude isn't a punishment, it's preparation. Remember that clarity removes what was never yours. And remember that awakening always begins with a thinning, a shedding, a quiet departure from the illusions you once called home. You are the universe experiencing itself through a mind that refuses to sleep, and that's a rare thing, a brave thing, a beautiful thing. And so the journey continues, quietly, deliberately, and entirely on your terms.